Welcome to my latest video, where I'll be modeling a dwarf character in Blender. I'll be showing you my process for creating a detailed and believable dwarf model, including sculpting, texturing, UV unwrapping, and rigging. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced user, I hope you find some useful tips and tricks in this tutorial. Let's get started. Before starting any project, it's crucial to gather references. This will help you along the way. You're not starting from scratch, but rather you're building upon existing ideas and concepts. You're not trying to reinvent the wheel at all. As you're gathering these references, whether it's in ArtStation, Google, Pinterest, consider the elements such as color, shape, form, composition that be relevant to you in whatever project you're considering creating. It's important to consider the realism within your project. Yes, this is a fantasy character we're creating, but I am also looking at anatomy, the biology, how muscle groups work together to make this character more appealing and realistic.
So where do I put all my references? I use PureRef. It's this program where you can just copy and paste and just have a library of references at the tip of your finger. At any time, you can scroll over to your second monitor or just bring it up within Windows. Very easy UI interface to work with. So right now I'm blocking out my character. My eyes are darting back and forth from the references. And I realized I could have worked a little bit faster and more efficient if I just added a series of cubes and or cylinders to shape out my character rather than me stretching this one sphere to like infinity. But we live and we learn. And in this workflow that I use for this dwarf, I use the masking tool as well as dynamic topology to highlight certain areas to start stretching the mesh out. You can see me doing it with the hands, the feet, the fingers. All throughout the time, you're going to see me just highlighting certain areas in which I don't truly want to affect. And I use Control I to get the invert version of the highlighted mesh.
So here I'm using the other workflow where I'm adding certain shapes of how big the head should be. And later on, I'll remesh it to the original body I've currently been working on, rather than using a Boolean tool to join the two objects together. I'm not only going to do this for the head, I will also do this for the hands and other certain objects throughout the modeling process. So I'm also using the pose brush as well to make sure the character is in somewhat of an A-frame position, so it's easier for him or for me to rig the character later on. Once again, I start off with a simple shape. Add a subdivide, a remesh, as well as a mirror modifier to have it exactly onto the other side. First applying a empty shape before putting a mirror modifier. And within that empty shape, I call it mirror. So any other future object that I want on the x-axis or y-axis, I just apply it to the mirror, empty shape.
A tool that I truly love using in certain crevices is the pinch tool or the crease tool. So I use it in between fingers or to make a muscle more defined, the traps or the biceps. So while in the sculpting location of Blender, you can also hover your cursor over any sort of object and hit Alt Q, and it will just highlight that rather than going back to the normal layout, clicking it, and going back to sculpting. And I learned this recently, and it saved quite a lot of time. I love the chin for this guy. At first, I'm like, wow, this guy had no chin. What am I doing? What's going through my head at the moment? I usually leave an empty void of a sphere so I can later on add my own eyeballs. Once again, adding a mirror modifier is just as a placeholder. So in the future, once I get the eyelids down, the right shape of the head, then I can either add it to the original mesh if I'm going to do a 3D print and or just a final render. I know I've said this probably a ton throughout this whole video, but it's imperative to have the right amount of references of your character in different angles. Even if it's an animal, make sure to have it from the front view, back view, and everything in between to make sure you get an accurate representation of the muscles. Later on throughout the sculpting process, I do use quad remesher just to help out with my retopology. Within this series, I am going to show you how I use the Blender hair particle system that recently came out on 3.3 version of Blender. Here once again, using the mirror modifier attached to an empty space to making the sculpting process a little bit more efficient. And remeshing this ear to the original mesh. Yes, it may lower the quality of that mesh or erase most of your sculpting, but I do feel like it's a little bit better than using a Boolean tool. For newer artists, I do recommend to always just trying new things. Do not limit yourselves. Of course, learning the foundations, proportion, color theory, you're going to learn the rules so later on you can break them, is the mindset that I always was taught throughout my journey to becoming an artist. It's going to be hard, but with a lot of discipline and the love to making art within your hands, you can definitely excel. Thank you again for your time. Feel free to continue watching this amazing time lapse of me creating this character. Thank you again for joining me in this video. Within this series, I'm going to be showing you more tips and tricks, UV unwrapping, texturing, rigging, as well as the hair particle system 3.3 of Blender. Truly appreciate your company, and I'll see you in the next video.